It began as a simple road trip, three best friends heading to the beach for a weekend of sun and laughter. But by the time the sun rose the next morning, none of them were alive. Their final text messages spoke of fear. "I have a bad feeling," one wrote. Hours later, that message would become the only trace left behind. What happened on that dark coastal highway in Ecuador would soon expose a horrifying chain of events, deception, betrayal, and brutality that would shock an entire nation and spark a national debate about justice and gender-based violence. This is the story of Denise Raina, Juliana Matías, and Naelli Tapia, three young women whose final journey became one of Ecuador's most haunting true crime cases. It was early April 2023. The road from Santo Domingo to Casablanca Beach was quiet, lined with trees and the fading hum of night. Inside a black Chevrolet Sail were three friends, 21-year-old Juliana Matías, 19-year-old Denise Raina, and 22-year-old Naelli Tapia. They were on their way to the coast for a short getaway, one they had planned carefully and discussed for days. Juliana, known to her friends as Syria, had recently graduated top of her class in transportation engineering but dreamed of becoming a singer. Denise, an aspiring veterinarian, spent her free time rescuing stray animals. And Naelli, a young mother, had been working hard to build a better life for her 4-year-old daughter. The trip was supposed to be fun, safe, and short. It was organized by Luis Fernando Vaca, an acquaintance of Denise's who promised a simple drive and beach stay in Esmeraldas. But something about the night felt off. At 11:06 p.m., Denise sent a chilling text to a friend, "I have a bad feeling." At nearly the same time, Naelli shared her live location with her sister, a small decision that would later prove crucial. The map showed the car moving along the highway, until it suddenly turned off into a dirt road. Moments later, the signal went dark. No more texts. No calls. Just silence. That was the last time anyone heard from them. When the girls' families woke up the next morning, their phones went straight to voicemail. There was no "we made it" message. Nothing. By noon, panic set in. Relatives began calling hospitals, checking bus terminals, posting on social media, and tracing every digital footprint. On April 6th, attorney Paulina Roada, Juliana's aunt, filed an official missing persons report. Police launched a full search, tracing their route from Santo Domingo to Esmeraldas and alerting checkpoints along the highway. Within hours, the case had spread across Ecuadorian social media, 3 young women gone without a trace. But hope turned to horror 2 days later. On April 7th, fishermen near the Esmeraldas River noticed a dog digging near the brush. When they looked closer, they saw what looked like a human hand. Police arrived and began to dig. First one body, then 2, then 3. All 3 women had been buried in shallow graves, wearing light beach clothes. Their mouths were taped, hands bound, and bodies marked with signs of prolonged restraint and brutal violence. Each victim had deep cuts across the neck. The cause of death was massive blood loss from sharp force trauma. Denise had defensive wounds on her hands. Juliana showed signs of blunt trauma to the face, and Naelli's wrists bore deep compression marks. The autopsies confirmed the worst. These were the missing women from Santo Domingo. The first big clue came from Naelli's shared location. Her last GPS signal stopped in the exact area where the bodies were found. Investigators then combed through surveillance footage from the roads leading to Esmeraldas. The cameras revealed 2 cars traveling together, a black Chevrolet Sail and another sedan. Records showed the Chevrolet had been rented under the name Euler Zambrano just days before the trip. But witnesses identified Luis Fernando Vaca as the actual driver. When the car was later found abandoned in Santo Domingo, forensic tests uncovered blood traces and even a piece of a fingernail belonging to Denise Raina. This evidence proved that the attack didn't happen at the river. It began inside the car or during a stop along the way. The suspects were quickly identified. Luis Fernando Vaca, the driver who organized the trip. Euler Zambrano, who rented the vehicle. Andres Zambrano, his brother, traveling in the second car. Omar Ordóñez, another associate who followed closely behind. Police now had a working theory. This wasn't an accident or random violence. It was a coordinated plan. Investigators and families proposed 2 main theories. Theory 1, a violent rage after rejection. The women might have resisted unwanted advances, sparking an eruption of aggression. The level of violence, torture, restraint, and overkill supported this theory too, a premeditated crime. The burial site was remote and large, too organized to be spontaneous. Families believed the men planned it in advance and intended to silence their victims permanently. By late May 2023, Andres and Juliana Zambrano were arrested near the Peru border, allegedly trying to flee the country. But just when police thought the case was closed, a shocking twist emerged. The supposed ringleader, Luis Fernando Vaca, was found dead. His body had been dismembered, likely a silencing hit connected to organized crime. Investigators now suspected that the murders weren't just personal. They were tied to a larger criminal network known locally as Los. As months later, Omar Ordóñez was finally captured in November 2023. During questioning, he admitted ties to the Los's crime group and a history of illegal firearms possession. The case, once classified as femicide, was suddenly downgraded to homicide by prosecutors, arguing there was no romantic relationship between the victims and the accused. The families were devastated. To them, this wasn't just murder, it was gendered violence. Lawyer Paulina Roada publicly fought back, arguing, "You don't need to love a woman to hate her." Rejection, coercion, and control, these two are acts of gender violence. Women's rights groups rallied across Ecuador demanding the femicide charge be reinstated. But the courts refused. The trial began in April 2024 in Esmeraldas. Prosecutors presented DNA evidence, surveillance footage, and forensic reports linking the men to the crime scene. In May 2024, the verdict came. Andres Zambrano and Omar Ordóñez were found guilty of murder and sentenced to 34 years and 8 months in prison. Juliana Zambrano, who only rented the car, was acquitted due to lack of direct involvement. For the victims' families, the verdict brought no peace. They still wanted the case to be recognized as femicide, not just murder. Then came another tragedy. In June 2024, lawyer Paulina Roada reported that her home was being watched. Weeks later, she began receiving threats. In August, her teenage son was murdered. Police called it a personal incident, but her family believed it was a message. Soon after, Paulina herself disappeared, only to be found 2 days later, alive but shaken, in the province of Manabi. The circumstances of her disappearance were never revealed, but few doubted it was linked to her fight for justice. 2 years after the tragedy, on April 7, 2025, families and community members gathered by the Esmeraldas River. They placed a memorial stone engraved with 3 names: Denise Raina, Juliana Matías, and Naelli Tapia. It was a quiet moment, but one filled with power. Because their deaths had not been forgotten. They had become a symbol of the thousands of Ecuadorian women who never made it home. Ecuador reports hundreds of femicides every year. And yet, many are still classified as homicides, blurring the gendered motive and making justice harder to achieve. The case of these 3 women forced the nation to confront uncomfortable truths about impunity, about gender violence, and about the courage of those who refuse to stay silent. If this story moved you, take a moment to remember their names. Because awareness is the first step toward justice. And if you or someone you know is in a controlling or dangerous relationship, please reach out for help. You are not alone, and there is always a way out. Thank you for watching Criminology Insights. Subscribe for more true stories that uncover the truth behind the headlines and remind us why every voice and every life matters.